The docking bay of the calcified verdict smelled like superheated metal and something organic that had been incinerated 3 weeks ago. Ambassador Alina Kovac stepped off the transport shuttle with the kind of posture that suggested confidence without arrogance. Boots scuffed from actual work, uniform practical rather than ceremonial. Nobody met her at the airlock. That was fine. She'd expected resistance. What she hadn't expected was the young Korvathi ensign who skittered from behind a munitions crate, mandibles clicking nervously. "Diplomat," he hissed, eye stalks swiveling. "You were not supposed to arrive for another cycle." "Your comms officer told me to come early," Elena replied calmly. "Our comms officer is going to be demoted. Your comms officer is trying to save your lives." The ensign led her through corridors that curved and tilted at angles designed by species who'd evolved in three-dimensional ocean environments. Trophy banners from defeated ships lined the walls alongside deactivated weapons. Elena cataloged everything: the dried exoskeleton mounted prominently, the crew members who stopped to stare, the one bold enough to click a greeting her translator rendered as honored tactician. She filed it all away and said nothing. The bridge resembled a shrine to controlled violence. Tactical screens flickered with data. The air tasted like ozone and adrenaline. And at the center stood Captain Threxin, massive even by Korvathi standards, carapace reinforced with alloy that caught light like oil on water. His scarred eye stalks and chipped mandibles told stories of centuries spent biting through obstacles. He stared at Alina with an expression that roughly translated to, "Who authorized this catastrophe?" "Explain," he said, not to her but to his second-in-command, a wiry female named Kestrel. "She was invited, Captain," Kestrel replied carefully. "By whom?" "By us." The bridge went silent. Threxin descended from his platform with predatory deliberation, stopping 3 meters from Alina, close enough to intimidate, far enough to retreat if necessary. "You have no authority here," he stated. "Correct." "You have no rank in my fleet." "Also correct." "Then why are you on my ship?" Alina smiled, not the polite diplomatic smile but something smaller and more genuine. "Because your crew asked me to be." Before Threxin could respond, Kestrel stepped forward. "Captain, we have been studying human military doctrine for the past 7 months. The silence that followed was the kind that usually preceded violence. "You have been doing what?" Threxin's voice dropped to something dangerous. "Human tactical theory," Kestrel continued steadily. "Their case studies, strategic frameworks there." "Without my knowledge." "With respect, Captain, we believed you would forbid it." "You believed correctly." Kestrel's mandibles clicked nervously before she regained composure. "We have won 4 engagements in the last 3 months that our projections said we would lose." Another officer added from the weapons station, "Our casualty rates are down 18%. Response times have improved by—" "Silence," Threxin commanded. They silenced. He turned back to Alina, who hadn't moved, hadn't reacted, just stood with hands clasped behind her back like she was waiting for a weather report. "This is your doing," he accused. "I've never met your crew before today. You are human, your species." "My species wrote some books," Alina interrupted gently, "posted some lectures, made our materials publicly available. What your crew did with that information was their choice, not mine." Threxin's eye stalks narrowed dangerously. "You expect me to believe you had no agenda." "I expect you to believe I was invited to observe. Whether you want me here is irrelevant." She paused deliberately. "Though I would like to see your tactical readouts from the Battle of Shenkora Station." Threxin opened his mandibles, probably to refuse, possibly to have her thrown out an airlock. But before he could speak, the tactical officer did something unprecedented. He brought up the readouts on the main screen without asking permission. Alina stepped forward, studying the data with calm focus. Her eyes tracked fleet movements, engagement timelines, casualty reports. She said nothing for nearly a full minute. Then she looked at Kestrel. You used to feint here, drew them into overcommitting to the left flank. Yes, diplomat. Then collapsed the center when they repositioned. Yes, diplomat. Textbook canon maneuver. Alina's smile sharpened. Second Punic War, Earth History, 216 BCE. She glanced at Threxen. Your crew learns fast. Threxen stared at the screen, then at his crew, then at the human who had somehow made him irrelevant on his own bridge in less than 10 minutes. Get out, he said quietly. Nobody moved. Get out. Alina nodded once, acknowledgement rather than submission, and turned toward the exit. Her boots rang against the deck plating. She was 3 steps from the door when Kestrel saluted. A proper salute, the kind given to superior officers. Within 5 seconds, every crew member on the bridge had done the same. Alina paused at the threshold, glanced back over her shoulder. I'll be in guest quarters if you need me. Section 7, I believe. How do you know where guest quarters are? Threxen demanded. Your crew sent me a ship schematic. She left. The bridge remained silent for approximately 30 seconds. Then Threxen turned to face his officers, his mutinous, treacherous, initiative-taking crew. Somebody explained to me what the hell just happened. Kestrel had been second in command for 9 years, which meant she'd survived approximately 47 situations where Threxen could have legally killed her and chosen not to. This was about to become 48. It started with a navigation error, she said carefully. Threxen's eye stalks went perfectly still, a bad sign. When truly angry, he froze like a moon right before it cracked. Elaborate. Ensign Vex was researching historical fleet movements, pre-unification conflicts. He found a data archive that had been mislabeled. Kestrel kept her mandibles neutral, posture formal. It contained Earth Military Academy lectures. He decided to listen. And he thought they were Corvathi at first. The tactical principles seemed familiar, aggressive, practical. She paused. By the time he realized they were human, he'd already learned something useful. Threxen began packing in slow, measured circles. Nobody pretended to work. They just listened and waited. What did he learn? Threxen asked. That humans lost more battles than they won, Captain, but they documented every failure, analyzed what went wrong, and taught those failures to their young. Kestrel gestured to the tactical display still showing the Shenkura engagement. They have a saying, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. We found that compelling. So you decided to teach yourselves human warfare. We decided to learn from a species that's been killing each other for 10,000 years without going extinct. That requires a certain skill set. Threxen stopped packing. How many of you were involved? The weapons officer raised a foreclaw, then navigation, then communications, then the entire bridge crew, one by one, until Threxen was looking at a forest of raised appendages. Unbelievable, he muttered. We created a study group, the weapons officer, Draxim, offered. Twice per cycle, we'd analyze human historical engagements and run simulations. What kind of engagements? Thermopylae, Agincourt, Midway, Dien Bien Phu. Draxim's mandibles clicked with enthusiasm. Humans have a remarkable talent for turning disadvantages into victories, or at least draws that looked enough like victories to keep fighting. They also lose spectacularly, another officer added. Charge of the Light Brigade, Gallipoli, Operation Market Garden, but they document those too with the same detail, same analysis. Threxen's carapace plates shifted unconsciously. You admire them. We respect their methodology, Kestrel said carefully. There's a difference. Is there? Threxen turned to face her directly. You invited one onto my ship behind my back. You saluted her on my bridge. You're implementing tactics from a species that's never won a major interstellar conflict. never commanded a fleet beyond their own system, and is generally considered. He searched for the word adorable by most of the galaxy. Adorable species don't have 1,600 distinct words for killing each other, Draxum said. Adorable species don't systematically study failure as a teaching tool, another officer added. Kestrel's voice was quiet but firm. Adorable species don't produce military theory that reduces our casualties by 18%. Threxon was silent for a long moment. Then, show me. They gathered in the tactical room where holographic displays could render entire battlefields in miniature. Kestrel pulled up their last 6 engagements, overlaying probability matrices from before they'd started their study group. This was Krenthal Nebula, she said, highlighting a chaotic engagement. Standard Korvathi doctrine would have had us form a battle line, focus fire on their flagship, overwhelmed through superior firepower. Which is correct. Which would have cost us 3 ships and 200 crew, Kestrel zoomed in. Instead, we used what humans call fire and maneuver. Small units, independent action, concentrated strikes at weak points. We didn't try to win a slugging match. We made them panic. Threxon studied the display. This is chaos. This is controlled chaos. There's a difference. Another display appeared, Shenkora Station. Closer, deadlier. The kind where mistakes got measured in empty bunks. We were outnumbered 2-1, Draxum said. Standard doctrine says retreat, regroup, request reinforcements. Which I ordered. Which we ignored. Draxum looked uncomfortable. We used a human tactic called defeat in detail. Let them think they were winning. Let them spread out. Then we hit them in pieces, one group at a time before they could consolidate. Hannibal at Cana, Threxon said quietly. The room went still. You know it, Kestrel said, surprised. I'm not ignorant, Threxon's eye stalks narrowed. I studied at the War College. I know Earth history. Every competent commander does. He gestured at the displays. The question isn't whether human tactics work. Obviously they work. Humans conquered their entire planet using them. The question is why you felt the need to go behind my back. Kestrel met his gaze steadily. Because you would have said no, Captain. You're damn right I would have. And we would have kept losing ships. The words hung in the air like a challenge that couldn't be taken back. Threxon moved closer to the holographic display, studying tactical overlays with an unreadable expression. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, more dangerous. What else did you learn from them? Kestrel and Draxum exchanged glances, some silent conversation that only developed between crew who'd served together long enough to communicate in subtext. They have a concept called commander's intent, Draxum said finally. Explain. Instead of giving detailed orders for every situation, human commanders tell their subordinates what they're trying to achieve, the goal, the why. Then they trust their people to figure out the how. Threxon stared at him. That's not a tactic, that's abdication of responsibility. Is it? Before Threxon could respond, the bridge intercom crackled. Ensign Vex's voice came through, young and uncertain. Captain, we have a situation. Enemy patrol, 6 ships heading into our sector. They'll be in weapons range in 20 minutes. Perfect timing. The universe had a 6th sense of humor. Battle stations, Threxon began, then stopped. Every officer in the tactical room was looking at him, not with defiance or rebellion, but with something worse. Expectation. They were waiting to see what he'd do. Kestrel, he said slowly, what would you do? She blinked, sir. You heard me. What would you do? I'd send scouts to probe their formation, find weak points, then position our heavy ships to exploit. Do it, Captain, do it. You have command. Threxon headed for the door, then paused. I'm going to guest quarters, Section 7. To do what? Kestrel asked. To ask the human what she thinks of my crew. He left before anyone could respond. Behind him, The bridge erupted into controlled chaos, the good kind, where everyone knew their role and executed without hesitation. Threxon found Alina in guest quarters exactly where she'd said she'd be, sitting at the desk reviewing something on a tablet. She looked up when he entered, didn't stand, didn't salute, just waited. "Tell me," Threxon said, "is my crew committing mutiny or am I just blind?" Alina set down her tablet. "Do you want the diplomatic answer or the honest one?" "I want the one that helps me understand what's happening to my ship." She smiled that small, private smile again. "Your crew isn't trying to replace you, Captain. They're trying to save you from irrelevance." Threxon felt something crack inside his chest, not his carapace, something deeper. "Explain." So she did. Alina stood and moved to the wall display, pulling up a star chart. "How many wars has your species fought, Captain?" "Dozens, hundreds if you count internal conflicts." "And how many of those wars did you document? Not the victories, the defeats, the catastrophic failures, the battles where everything went wrong and you learned nothing except how to die prettier next time." Threxon said nothing. "Humans document everything," Alina continued. "Every mistake, every miscalculation, every commander who made the wrong call and got people killed. We write it down, analyze it, teach it to children who haven't even held a weapon yet." She turned to face him. "We don't do this because we're proud of failing. We do it because we're terrified of failing the same way twice." "That's just paranoia." "No, paranoia is being afraid something bad will happen. This is being certain something bad will happen and preparing anyway." She pulled up casualty statistics, engagement analyses. "Your doctrine is built on strength, overwhelming force, superior firepower. It works when you're stronger than your opponent. Which we usually are. Until you're not." Alina highlighted the Grimthar engagement Kestrel had mentioned. "This ambush should have destroyed you. You were outgunned, outnumbered, caught in a kill zone with no retreat options. Standard Korvathi response would have been frontal assault, correct? Break through or die trying. Honor demands we face our enemies directly. Honor demands you win." Her voice was sharp now, cutting. "Your second-in-command didn't face them directly. She retreated, split her forces, used terrain to mask movements, and hit them from angles they weren't watching. She fought dishonorably by your standards, and she won." Threxon's carapace plates shifted involuntarily. "You're saying honor is a weakness." "I'm saying rigid honor is predictable, and predictable gets you killed." The intercom crackled. Kestrel's voice, calm but urgent. "Captain, we've engaged the enemy patrol. They're retreating faster than expected. Looks like a trap, probably trying to draw us into reinforcements." Threxon recognized the pattern immediately. "Pull back, don't pursue, maintain defensive posture." "Sir, with respect, I think we should pursue." Threxon froze. In 9 years, Kestrel had never directly contradicted an order. "Explain." "They're not retreating toward reinforcements. Our scouts tracked their trajectory. They're heading toward an asteroid field. If they get there, we lose them. But if we maintain pressure now, we can force them into open space where we have advantage." A pause. "It's risky, but I think it's the right call." Every instinct screamed to reassert authority. Instead, Threxon looked at Alina. She said nothing, just watched with those unnervingly steady human eyes. "What do you think?" Threxon said into the comm. "Not just you, Kestrel, everyone on the bridge." Silence. "Then, I agree with the commander. We have momentum. Using it makes sense." Navigation concurs. Pursuit course is clean. Tactical agrees. Their formation suggests they're not expecting us to follow. One by one, his officers weighed in, not asking permission, stating professional opinions like they had value independent of his approval. "Commander Kestrel," Threxon said slowly, "you have tactical command. Pursue at your discretion." "Yes, Captain." The comm clicked off. "That was difficult for you," Alina observed. You have no idea. Actually, I do. Human commanders struggle with this constantly. She moved toward the door, pausing at the threshold. But here's what we learned after 10,000 years of trial and error. The measure of a good commander isn't how well they fight. It's how well their people fight without them. Pursuit lasted 16 minutes. Threxon watched from the bridge as his crew executed maneuvers he'd never authorized, using formations he'd never approved. Kestrel directed the engagement like she'd been doing it her whole life. The enemy patrol scattered. 2 ships surrendered. The rest fled into jump space with the kind of panic that suggested they'd tell stories about this later. When it was over, the bridge crew didn't celebrate. They just returned to stations, logging data, running diagnostics, preparing for whatever came next. Professional, efficient, terrifyingly competent. Threxon realized he'd been standing on his platform for the entire engagement, just watching, not commanding, just present. "Casualty report," he said. "None, Captain," Draxum replied without looking up. "Minor damage to forward plating, already being repaired." Threxon reviewed the engagement data. The pattern was obvious once he knew to look for it. His crew hadn't fought like Corvathi. They'd fought like humans pretending to be Corvathi. It was beautiful. It was also deeply unsettling. Alina departed 3 cycles later. No ceremony, no formal farewell. She simply appeared at the airlock with her bag, nodded to the assembled crew, and prepared to board the transport shuttle. Kestrel stopped her. "Will you return?" "Do you need me to?" "No, but we'd welcome it." Alina smiled, genuine this time, something warmer. "Then maybe someday." Threxon was standing at the airlock entrance. "One question." "Of course." "Do all humans do this? Insert yourselves into other species' military structures, share your knowledge freely, then leave before anyone can properly understand what happened?" Alina laughed, a short, surprised sound. "Captain, we don't make anyone do anything. We just tell people what we learned. What you choose to do with that information is entirely up to you." She paused at the shuttle entrance. "The most dangerous thing about my species isn't our weapons or tactics or strategic doctrine. It's that we make you question whether your old ways are good enough. And once that question exists, you can't unthink it." The airlock sealed. The shuttle departed. Threxon stood watching it vanish into the black, feeling like he just survived something that hadn't quite been a battle. He returned to the bridge to find his crew waiting. Not at attention, not rigidly formal, just ready. "Commander Kestrel, I want proposals for restructuring our tactical operations. Include recommendations for decentralized command protocols and officer initiative frameworks." "Yes, Captain." "Draxum, start a formal training program. Document what you've learned, make it official. If we're going to fight like humans, we should understand why." "Understood, sir." "And someone explain to me what commander's intent actually means in practice, because I have a feeling I've been doing it wrong for 30 years. Several officers volunteered simultaneously. Threxon looked at them, really looked, maybe for the first time in years, and saw what the human had seen immediately: competence that had been waiting for permission to exist. "One more thing," he said. "If any of you ever have an idea you think I'll reject, I want you to tell me anyway, especially if you think I'll reject it. Understood?" "Yes, Captain." They returned to their duties. The ship moved forward through space, same trajectory as before, but somehow the destination felt different. Threxon settled into his command platform, then immediately stood and moved to a normal station, sitting eye level with his crew rather than above them. It felt strange, it felt right. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he could almost hear Alina's voice. The measure of a good commander isn't how well they fight, it's how well their people fight without them. He'd spent his entire career trying to be indispensable. Maybe it was time to become obsolete instead. After all, the humans had been doing it for 10,000 years. And they hadn't gone extinct yet.